Last week, Angie shared, I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit on her. It was powerful. I could not deny the Lord was speaking, which also you, I'm pointing to Mike, said Angie had been anointed. And then there was the episode where the Lord had spoken to me and I asked him a question and he gave me an answer, but the answer wasn't finished yet. So the next day I came in here on Sabbath and the scriptures began changing in a logical sequence to continue the answer. Yesterday, it's unbelievable, there was more given. These two young men were excited about whatever they were doing, and one of them had a dream. And in this dream, he said he saw bombs starting to be dropped on this nation. And he said it was so real and so terrible. By the time it was done, and I can't remember where it is in YouTube or anything, so this young man talked about these bombs being dropped. It stirred in me. Joel shared a dream, and he said he had picked me up, I believe, and that you were going to go to the Richards house, and there was somebody you were supposed to get there, or some people you were supposed to get. Well, on our way into town to take my car, I told Don, you know, I think I need to go sooner than I think. And that's go to Chicago. Sue had an experience where she saw the results of bombs having been dropped. Do you remember just the year, Sue, when you had the dream about the land had changed?
First part of 2011.
All right. All these things were all pointing to remind me of something. So yesterday I heard that testimony of that young man, and this morning I was in halfway between sleep and awake. That's usually when he will share something important to me. Given all these things which he had told me over the past few days, when I woke up, but my eyes were not open, I could hear my Bible playing on my phone. So I know I was awake, but my eyes were closed. And all of a sudden, an experience that I had in 2011 was replayed in my mind in absolute detail. I had forgotten all about this experience, even until this morning. This experience was a dream, and in the dream, something was about to happen. We didn't know what, but there was me and another gentleman laying prone on the ground, and there was like a bank of a mound of dirt in front of us. And we were laying there, and we were desperately trying to find a mask to cover our face. And we couldn't find any masks. I realized, and I knew that we needed these masks. And so I reached over. I don't know why I reached over, but I reached over and I pulled out of the dirt this dirty old towel. And so I tore it in half and I gave him part and I took part. And it was then that bombs began to drop off in the distance. After I got the mask on, bombs began to drop off in the distance. And they kept coming closer and closer. And finally, they were so close that the dirt and the dust were coming over us. And because we had this mask, we were able to breathe. We weren't just breathing pure dust. Well, it was getting more and more and more intense. There was a building, and I decided I needed to get up from there and go into the building. So I got up and I went into the building, and I found myself in a room full of people. It weren't just anybody, it was military. All kinds of military. And they weren't just soldiers, they were generals and important men making decisions. The man in the middle was a very, very ancient man. He had long white hair, long white beard. There was two that had approached the man in the middle, and he was intently listening to both parties. One would speak, the other would speak. Then he would turn back to the other, and they would speak, and they would speak. And these men were trying to convince this one to favor their side. And the other was trying to get him to favor the side. And so, pretty quick, the man held his hand out like this, and he opened it up, and there was something in his hand. And I didn't see what that something was. He handed it to one, and he says, "This will help you." Then he opened up the other hand, handed it to the other, and he said, "This will help you." And then he stopped, and I was kind of standing off in the corner. I kind of made my way to a corner. Everybody was all intently watching what was going on in the middle, and I kind of went over to a corner and standing there watching this unfold. And suddenly the man stopped and he looked right at me. And he says, "Aaron, I alone determine when there is war." It hit me so hard that one element in this dream I find myself in, needing a mask before the bomb started dropping. And I am coupled with the other things that have been happening. I believe this is relevant to the whole message that he's bringing forth. That we should not be afraid. He determines when things are done. The children of Israel could not go in and possess the land, thus they stayed in Egypt for 400 years. What was the purpose of that? Because the sin of the people in the land had not reached an extent that gave God the justification to remove them from the land. There are martyrs under the altar that are crying day and night, "Lord, when are you going to avenge us?" And he says, "Relax, it's okay, put these white garments on, because all the rest of the martyrs have to be martyred so that I am justified in what I do." He doesn't do anything unless he is absolutely abiding within his law. And that's how he functions. This came to me, and I'll just read this. "To everything there's a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. What hit me was 8, verse 8. And it's a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. He alone makes the decision when war shall be. It's all within his framework of time. So what he's showing me is that the time is upon us. That young man, when he was talking about the bombs coming, he was under the power of the Lord, saying, most of those things, I'll start watching them, and about halfway through, I'll eject them. I watched him all the way through because he had such intent in his voice. And he says, I need to, and this is what kind of made me take note. He says, I need to go to every city and tell them. Judgment is hanging over them. Verse 8 stuck out at me. A time for war and a time for peace. And it's all to the purposes under heaven. All times are set.